Kellen's heart slammed against his chest as the sky tore open. Bright shards of rock and dust rained down from above, each strike shaking the ground beneath his boots. He ducked instinctively, grit scraping against his palms as he scrambled over jagged stones, searching for anything that might have survived the chaos. The air smelled of ozone and scorched earth, sharp and bitter, and he could hear distant cracks of rock splitting, echoing like the planet itself was screaming. Then he saw it. A small, trembling shape huddled beneath the shattered remains of a crystalline tree. Kellen froze for a second, his mind trying to make sense of it. The creature was tiny, barely the size of his forearm, but it shivered violently, wings crumpled, scales dull and mottled. Its eyes flickered open, wide and panicked, and a faint whimper tore from its throat. A dragon hatchling. Without a second thought, Kellen sprinted forward, leaping over jagged fragments of rock. He grabbed the fragile creature into his arms, careful not to crush it, feeling its body shiver against his chest. Its wing was bent at an unnatural angle, bleeding a faint silver liquid that sizzled when it hit the scorched ground. "Hold on," Kellen muttered, more to steady himself than the hatchling. "I've got you. Just hold on." The hatchling let out a tiny cry, its glow faint, almost imperceptible, but enough to stir something in Kellen. He adjusted his grip, using his jacket as padding to protect it from the sharp stones, and glanced around. The meteor storm had passed, but the landscape was chaotic. Trees splintered, rocks scattered, and distant shadows shifted unnaturally. Something else was out there, moving silently through the devastation. Kellen's gut told him he wasn't alone. He started running toward the narrow canyon he'd spotted earlier, the safest route he could see through the ruined valley. Every step sent a jolt of pain through his knees and ankles, but he ignored it. The hatchling whimpered again, its small body trembling against him. Kellen's chest tightened with a mix of fear and determination. He couldn't let it die, not now, not like this. A sudden roar split the air. Kellen ducked just as a jagged shard of crystal slammed into the rock beside him, sending shards flying. His stomach lurched. Predators? Or something bigger? He didn't have time to find out. He wrapped his arms tighter around the hatchling and leapt over a chasm that seemed impossibly wide, landing hard on the other side. The hatchling's wings flapped weakly, scattering tiny sparks of light. Kellen kept moving. "Almost there," he whispered, even though he wasn't sure who he was comforting, the hatchling or himself. Every sound made him tense, the distant crash of falling rock, the hiss of wind, and something heavier, silent, moving just beyond the canyon's edge. He dared a glance over his shoulder and froze. A massive shadow flickered between the shattered trees, a shape too large to be any predator he had ever seen. It didn't move like it was hunting, yet it was watching. Waiting. Kellen shook off the chill that ran down his spine. Focus, he told himself. He couldn't let fear freeze him. He adjusted his grip, pressed the hatchling closer, and noticed something strange. Its tiny chest pulsed with a faint blue glow, flickering rhythmically as if trying to communicate. He had no idea what it meant, but it gave him a spark of hope. He reached a narrow ledge, overlooking a drop that would have killed them both if he slipped. His boots scraped the rock as he edged forward, the hatchling clinging to him, wings twitching helplessly. Below, the canyon floor opened into darkness, and for a second Kellen thought he saw dozens of glowing eyes staring up at him. Then a sudden tremor shook the ledge, sending loose stones tumbling down the cliff. Kellen's balance wavered. The hatchling's cries pierced the air, panicked, its glow brightening as if responding to the danger. Instinctively, Kellen crouched low, pressing the hatchling against his chest, and jumped sideways, landing on a hidden rock outcropping. He exhaled, chest heaving, heart hammering in his ears. For a brief moment he dared to hope they were safe. The hatchling's glow dimmed slightly, settling like it had calmed, but Kellen's eyes darted around the canyon. That shadow had not moved. It lingered, silent and massive, just at the edge of the broken trees. Something was following them. Something enormous. Kellen swallowed hard and whispered, "We're not alone, little one." The hatchling responded with a small, high-pitched shriek, and its glow flared one last time, brighter than before. For a heartbeat, Kellen thought he saw a shape moving with purpose, almost graceful despite its size. Then the wind shifted, carrying a whisper of sound he couldn't place. Not a roar, not a growl, but a presence. Watching. Judging. He tightened his grip, his eyes narrowing. Whatever was out there, whatever had been trailing them through the storm, it wasn't attacking, yet. And that terrified him even more. Kellen took a deep breath, scanning the ledge ahead. The canyon twisted into darkness, but at the far end, a faint light shimmered. Shelter? Or a trap. He had no choice. He had to move forward. With the hatchling cradled against him, he stepped toward the unknown, and the shadow stirred, stretching across the jagged ground like a silent promise. The hatchling's glow pulsed again, almost as if it were warning him. And then, from the darkness, a low, reverent sound echoed, a noise that made Kellen's blood run cold and his curiosity spike. Something huge was approaching, moving toward them, but for reasons he couldn't yet understand, it wasn't attacking. Kellen's jaw set. He had no idea what he was about to face, but he knew one thing. Whatever came next, he would not let this little creature die. The canyon fell silent for a heartbeat, and then the earth itself seemed to whisper, carrying the faint, unmistakable sound of wings stretching. Kellen didn't pause. Every step he took along the jagged canyon edge felt like walking a tightrope over death. The hatchling's weak breaths pressed against his chest, and he could feel its tiny body trembling. The blue glow that had been flickering with moments of hope now pulsed more steadily, almost like a heartbeat syncing with his own. He adjusted the makeshift jacket sling around it, careful not to jostle the broken wing. Ahead, the canyon twisted into narrower passageways, sharp cliffs rising like jagged teeth on either side. A sudden gust of wind carried dust and ash into his eyes, blinding him for a moment. When he wiped them clear, he noticed faint movement along the rocks above, a series of shapes sliding silently over the stone like predators that had mastered the cliffs. His pulse spiked. "They're following us," he muttered under his breath. The hatchling whimpered in response, a tiny shiver running through its glowing body. Kellen scanned the ledge, his mind racing for options. The rocks were loose, unstable, and each step could trigger a collapse. Below, shadows shifted unpredictably, strange silhouettes rising and disappearing with the wind. Kellen's eyes fell on a cluster of jagged rock outcrops, a natural funnel that could act as a barrier. He sprinted toward it, careful to keep the hatchling cradled safely, and began stacking smaller rocks to create makeshift spikes and obstacles. He worked fast, throwing stones and watching the predators above hesitate at the traps. One misstep, one slip, and both he and the hatchling could fall hundreds of meters. A sudden screech echoed from the canyon floor. Kellen froze. The predators had spotted them. He held his breath and crouched low, instinctively covering the hatchling with his jacket. The shadows leapt closer, elongated bodies skimming over the canyon floor, their eyes reflecting the hatchling's glow in a haunting mirror. Kellen weighed his options. Fight or flight. He had nothing but his wits. With a quick decision, he grabbed a chunk of jagged stone, threw it toward a narrow crevice, and it landed with a resonant crash that echoed like a gunshot. The predators snapped their heads toward the noise, giving him a brief moment to duck behind a larger rock and shield the hatchling. The gamble worked. The shadows paused, confused, and for a heartbeat, Kellen thought they might retreat. But then a rumble came from above. The cliff wall shook violently, sending loose stones cascading down. Kellen's heart jumped. This was no ordinary predator. Something massive, something intelligent was tracking him from the high rocks. The hatchling's glow flared suddenly, startling him. It wasn't fear, it was communication. It was warning him. Instinct overrode panic. Kellen darted along the canyon wall, weaving between jagged rocks, pressing the hatchling close. The glowing pulses from the tiny creature grew brighter with each desperate step, as though signaling danger he couldn't yet perceive. He noticed the shadows ahead weren't just predators, they were moving with a purpose, almost like scouts. Kellen's stomach sank. If they coordinated, escape would be nearly impossible. He reached a narrow ledge barely wide enough for his boots. Below, a sheer drop threatened to end everything in an instant. One wrong move and both he and the hatchling would plummet. The predator's eyes glinted from below, reflecting the faint light of the hatchling. Kellen gritted his teeth and inched along, placing each step carefully. His hands were slick with sweat, muscles straining against the weight of the fragile creature. Then he saw it. A faint shimmer in the corner of his vision, a massive form that moved silently along the cliff face. It was enormous, far larger than the predators, yet it made no sound. Kellen's breath caught. He realized this was the shadow he had glimpsed before, a creature so immense it made the predators seem tiny in comparison. It wasn't attacking. Not yet. It was observing. Waiting. Kellen swallowed hard, forcing himself to focus. The hatchling stirred in his arms, wings twitching weakly. Its glow pulsed rapidly, almost urgently, and Kellen understood instinctively, it wanted him to move faster. He adjusted the jacket sling, pressing the creature close to his chest, and sprinted along the narrow ledge. Every misstep could trigger a slide of stones or a fall into the abyss. A predator lunged from the shadows below, claws scraping the ledge. Kellen twisted, grabbed a loose stone and flung it with all his strength. The rock hit the predator's side, sending it skidding backward into a cluster of jagged rocks. The hatchling squeaked in surprise and Kellen patted it gently, whispering, "Almost there. Hold on." The cliff trembled again. This time the movement wasn't from the predators but from something massive overhead. The earth beneath him shook, dust and small rocks raining down. Kellen's eyes widened. Whatever was above, it was huge. Its presence was undeniable, and yet it didn't strike. He wondered why it waited, and a flicker of fear mixed with curiosity twisted in his gut. He pressed forward, heart pounding, the hatchling's glow lighting his path. Ahead, the canyon opened slightly, revealing a narrow crevice with faint light glimmering at its far end. Kellen's chest tightened with hope, shelter or at least a safer path. But as he moved closer, a gust of wind brought a new sound. A low, vibrating hum, almost like a voice resonating through the rocks. It made the hatchling's glow flare violently, as if reacting to something invisible. Kellen froze. The predators below hissed, the cliff above groaned, and the hum continued, deep and steady. The hatchling wriggled slightly in his grip, wings fluttering weakly, its glow bright enough to cast shadows against the jagged rocks. Kellen's gut clenched. He had no idea what he was about to face, but instinct told him it was something far larger than anything he had ever encountered. He gritted his teeth and whispered, "Stay with me. Whatever's coming, we survive it together." From the shadows at the canyon's edge, the massive form shifted. This time, Kellen saw it fully. A shape taller than any tree, scales glinting faintly even in the dim light, eyes that seemed to burn with intelligence. And then, almost impossibly, it stepped closer, wings stretching silently, moving like a predator and a guardian at the same time. The hatchling's glow pulsed frantically. Kellen felt a shiver of awe and fear. This was no ordinary creature. Something monumental had entered their world. Something that could decide their fate with a single movement. And then, as Kellen prepared to take another cautious step, the ground beneath the ledge rumbled violently, and the shadow shifted, almost bowing toward him. Kellen froze mid-step, his boots pressed against the narrow ledge, heart hammering like a drum in his chest. The shadow above shifted again, massive wings spreading almost soundlessly, casting a veil of darkness over the canyon floor. His mind raced, trying to process what he was seeing. It was alive, intelligent, and it was watching him. The hatchling in his arms stirred violently, letting out a high-pitched squeak. Its glow pulsed rapidly, brighter than it had ever been, illuminating the scales along its tiny body. Kellen pressed it close, whispering softly, I know, it's huge but we have to stay calm." He didn't know if the creature understood him, but the words grounded him, kept his fear tethered to action. He had to move. Every second spent frozen could mean a sudden drop, a rock slide or an attack. Kellen scanned the ledge ahead and noticed a precarious rock bridge connecting two cliffs. The span was narrow, slick with dust and loose stones, and it swayed slightly under the wind. One wrong step and both he and the hatchling would fall. But he had no choice. It was their only path. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, tightening his grip. He inched onto the bridge, one foot trembling as the rock shifted beneath him. The hatchling whimpered, wings twitching, and Kellen's stomach knotted. He slowed his breathing, focusing on every sound, every movement. A sudden gust of wind nearly knocked him off balance. His boots slipped on the dust, and for a terrifying heartbeat he teetered on the edge. Then the hatchling's glow flared, blinding him momentarily, but he felt its tiny body shift. Somehow, instinctively, it adjusted its own weight, leaning against him. The added balance saved him, and he stumbled forward to the other side. He exhaled, chest heaving, relief flooding through him, but it was short-lived. From above, the massive shadow shifted again, descending this time. Kellen's eyes widened. It wasn't just a shadow, it had a form. Massive, scaled, and regal. Its head lifted, eyes glowing faintly like molten gold. The wings folded slightly, revealing a body broader than any tree he'd ever seen, limbs rippling with impossible strength. The hatchling shrieked again, but this time it was different. Not fear, recognition. The tiny creature's glow pulsed in rhythm with the larger form's movements, and Kellen realized something astonishing. The hatchling wasn't just weak. It was communicating, signaling, reacting. He tightened his arms, staring up at the colossal figure. The air vibrated as the massive creature moved closer, silent and deliberate. Kellen felt a wave of awe wash over him. It was the Dragon Queen, the mother of the hatchling. The realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. This was the being that had produced the tiny life he held in his hands. And yet she did not attack. She did not roar or strike. She only watched. Kellen's mind raced. Panic wanted to take over, but he forced himself to stay calm. He had one chance to prove his intentions. One wrong move and he'd lose everything. Slowly, carefully, he adjusted the hatchling, holding it closer, and whispered, "We're not a threat. We just want to survive." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment, Kellen thought she would strike. But then, she lowered her massive head, tilting it slightly as though examining him. The canyon seemed to shrink under her presence. The wind carried the faint scent of smoke and something sweeter, almost metallic, like a memory from a world he had never known. Kellen swallowed hard and took a cautious step forward. "I'm helping her, helping your baby." His voice trembled, but there was determination behind it. The queen's massive eyes didn't leave him. Her wings shifted, and the faint hum of energy thrummed through the air. Kellen felt it in his chest, a resonance that made his skin tingle. Then, as he breathed a sigh of tentative relief, a new sound echoed through the canyon. Not from the queen or the hatchling, but from below, a chorus of screeches, clicks, and hisses. The predators were regrouping, drawn toward the hatchling's glow. Kellen's stomach dropped. He was caught between creatures from two impossible scales, the apex predator above and the swarm below. Without thinking, he leapt forward, dodging a falling rock, and landed near a narrow crevice in the cliff wall. The hatchling wriggled but did not cry out, its glow intensifying. Kellen realized the glow was almost like a beacon, alerting both the predators below and the queen above. He had to act fast. He scanned the crevice and noticed jagged protrusions of rock. A risky thought struck him. If he could lure the predators toward the rocks, he might be able to buy a moment of safety. But it required leaving the hatchling exposed for a heartbeat. Kellen's chest tightened, every instinct screamed to protect it, but he made the calculation. With a sudden movement, he kicked a loose rock toward the predators. The sound echoed, drawing their attention. In the same motion, he ducked behind the rocks, shielding the hatchling with his jacket. The predators lunged but were deflected by the jagged rocks, stumbling and screeching. A small payoff, but enough. The queen's gaze shifted downward, as though she approved the clever human action. Kellen felt a surge of cautious relief. The enormous creature wasn't just watching. It was evaluating him, measuring his courage, intelligence, and worth. The hatchling's glow pulsed brighter, almost urgently, and Kellen realized it was urging him forward. Ahead, a faint light shimmered, barely visible through the canyon walls. Shelter? Safety? Or another unknown danger? He didn't know. He only knew he had to keep moving. Kellen took a deep breath, tightened his arms around the hatchling, and started toward the light. Each step was careful, deliberate, but fast. The predators were regrouping, and the queen remained above, wings folded slightly, her gaze unwavering. Then a sudden vibration shook the cliff wall beneath him. Loose rocks tumbled. Kellen froze. The queen stepped closer, massive wings extending almost reverently, and the air around her shimmered faintly. Kellen felt a strange pull, as if something in the canyon itself acknowledged her presence. The hatchling chirped sharply, its glow flaring with intensity. Kellen's eyes widened. It wasn't just alive, it was trying to show him something. He squinted toward the shimmer of light ahead and realized, with a mix of awe and dread, that the canyon led into a cavern filled with glowing energy, unlike anything he had ever seen. The predators hissed below. The queen's eyes locked onto him. And the hatchling, small and fragile in his arms, pulsed brighter than ever, signaling both danger and opportunity. Kellen's chest tightened with anticipation. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. Nothing in this world, no predator or shadow, could stop him from keeping this creature alive. And then, from the cavern's mouth, a low, resonant hum began, a sound that made his hair stand on end and filled him with both fear and curiosity. The queen leaned forward, wings tense, and Kellen realized that the next step would change everything. Kellen's eyes widened as the cavern's glow stretched across the jagged walls, casting strange patterns of light that danced like living fire. The hatchling squirmed in his arms, wings flaring weakly, its glow pulsing in tandem with the shimmering crystals inside the cavern. He could feel the energy radiating from the place, alive, almost sentient. His pulse pounded as he stepped forward, careful not to trip over jagged stones. Every movement echoed through the cavern, and every echo seemed to be watched. Above him, the dragon queen hovered silently, massive wings folding slightly but still casting a shadow that dwarfed the entire canyon. Her golden eyes followed his every step, piercing, intelligent, and unyielding. Kellen's stomach tightened. The realization hit him hard. This creature could crush him in an instant, yet she didn't. She was observing him, judging him, perhaps even testing him. From the cavern's depths came a sudden rumble, low and reverberating, shaking the ground beneath Kellen's boots. Loose stones slid down the walls, clattering into the shadows. The predators that had pursued him through the canyon were gathering near the entrance, drawn by the hatchling's glow. Their screeches echoed unnaturally, amplified by the cavern's acoustics. Kellen froze for a heartbeat, clutching the hatchling tighter. He had no weapons, no backup, only his wits and determination. "This way," he muttered, voice barely audible, glancing at the faint glow deeper inside the cavern. The hatchling's wings twitched as if urging him onward. Kellen took a deep breath and sprinted, dodging falling rocks and jagged edges, sliding through narrow gaps and leaping over broken stones. Every step brought him closer to safety, or deeper into unknown danger. The predators lunged suddenly from the shadows below, claws scraping the rocks, hissing and snapping. Kellen's heart lurched. Instinct kicked in. He kicked a loose rock into their path, sending it tumbling with perfect timing to block two of them. Another predator leapt toward him from the side, but Kellen grabbed a crystal shard jutting from the wall and swung it with all his strength. It struck the creature's side, sending it crashing into the cavern wall. He barely had time to breathe before more predators lunged. Then from above, a shadow blotted out the cavern ceiling. The Dragon Queen descended, wings beating slowly, powerfully, the air vibrating with energy. The predators froze instantly. Kellen's jaw dropped. She didn't attack, she didn't even growl, but the predators seemed to understand instinctively that they were outmatched. They hissed, backing away, confusion and fear in their tiny eyes. Kellen couldn't help but glance up in awe. "You," he whispered, voice trembling. "You're protecting us." The hatchling pulsed in response, wings flaring slightly as if agreeing. Kellen's chest tightened. The impossible was happening. The Dragon Queen, apex predator of this world, was allowing him to survive. His heart raced with gratitude and fear both at once. But the respite was brief. From deeper inside the cavern came a new rumble, deeper, heavier, more menacing than anything Kellen had felt before. The walls shook violently, dust falling in clouds. He stumbled, nearly dropping the hatchling, and the creature shrieked, glowing wildly. Kellen pressed it closer, his mind racing. Something larger, something he couldn't see yet, was approaching. Whatever it was, it would not be stopped by predators or cliffs. Kellen had to act. Using the jagged rocks along the cavern floor, he improvised. He stacked sharp stones into makeshift barriers and threw crystal shards toward the deeper shadows, luring the approaching threat into narrow gaps where the cavern structure could trap it temporarily. His muscles ached, sweat stung his eyes, but his mind worked rapidly, anticipating movement, calculating angles, predicting behavior. Every action mattered, every second counted. The rumble grew louder, shaking the cavern walls. Dust rained down, blinding him for a moment. Kellen's ears rang, and the hatchling's glow became almost blinding. But then he felt a shift in the queen's presence above him. She descended lower, wings brushing the cavern floor, and emitted a low, vibrating sound, a communication Kellen realized. The vibrations resonated through the hatchling. Its glow intensified, wings flaring. In that moment, Kellen understood. The queen was helping him, guiding him, coordinating with the hatchling to survive the threat they could not yet see. A spark of hope surged through him. He clenched his teeth and ran forward, following the faint glow deeper into the cavern, letting the queen's vibrations guide his steps. Suddenly, the rumble exploded into a violent quake. A massive silhouette emerged from the shadows, a creature unlike any Kellen had ever imagined. Its bulk was enormous, covered in jagged, obsidian-like scales. Limbs as wide as trees dragged across the cavern floor, and its eyes glowed faintly red, scanning the space. Kellen froze for a heartbeat. The predators hissed, frozen. The queen flared her wings, stretching over him protectively. Kellen's mind raced. He had no weapons. He had nothing but ingenuity and courage. Then an idea struck. If he could get the creature to focus on the cavern walls, he might have a chance to use the jagged crystals to trap it temporarily. He sprinted toward a narrow passage, dragging the hatchling with him, shouting toward the massive creature, hoping his movements would draw its attention. It worked. The creature lunged after him, massive claws scraping the cavern floor. Kellen dodged into the passage, kicking crystals loose. The giant monster roared, fury shaking the cavern, and became entangled briefly in a crystal formation. The predators scattered, hissing and screeching in confusion. Kellen pressed forward, adrenaline surging, muscles burning, heart hammering. The queen landed beside him, massive wings folding gently, her presence almost comforting now. Kellen's chest heaved as he set the hatchling down behind a protective crystal outcrop. It chirped weakly, wings twitching, glowing faintly. Kellen knelt beside it, stroking its tiny head. "You're safe for now," he whispered. "We made it, because we didn't give up." The Queen's eyes softened slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if acknowledging his courage. Kellen felt a warmth spread through him. Humans, frail, small, and alone, could stand against impossible odds when determination and intelligence led the way. But just as he allowed himself a moment of relief, the cavern shook again, harder this time. Dust fell in clouds, and the faint light of the crystals flickered violently. The massive creature from before was not done. Its red eyes glowed brighter, and its roar echoed like thunder, shaking the walls and floor. Kellen's stomach tightened. He looked at the Queen, then the hatchling, then the cavern mouth ahead. The path was narrow, treacherous, and unknown, but he had no choice. Survival demanded movement, courage, and ingenuity. He pressed the hatchling to his chest, took a deep breath, and stepped forward into the unknown, leaving the temporary safety of the crystal outcrop behind. And then, from the depths of the cavern, a new sound emerged, low, vibrating, and oddly melodic. The hatchling's glow flared violently, almost in recognition, and Kellen realized that the next step would lead to revelations beyond his wildest imagination. The Queen leaned closer, wings tensing, and the shadows shifted. Something monumental was waiting deeper in the cavern. Kellen swallowed hard, heart pounding, and whispered, "Let's see this through, together." Kellen pressed the hatchling tightly to his chest, every muscle trembling from exhaustion, adrenaline, and fear. The massive creature behind him roared again, shaking the cavern walls, but he didn't falter. The glow from the tiny dragon in his arms pulsed brightly, casting faint shadows across the jagged crystal walls. Somehow it was alive, somehow it had survived everything, and somehow he had kept it safe. The Dragon Queen hovered above, enormous wings folded slightly, but her presence was protective now, not threatening. Her golden eyes followed his every movement, and for the first time, Kellen felt a strange reassurance. She wasn't attacking, she wasn't judging him. She was acknowledging him. His heart hammered in his chest. Humans were fragile, small, and weak in the face of creatures like this, yet here he was, alive, clever, and compassionate. The hatchling stirred again, weak but responsive. Its wings twitched, and its glow brightened when Kellen whispered to it. "We're almost there, little one. We're almost safe." His voice was hoarse but determined. Every step he took was careful, precise, calculated. The ground beneath him was uneven, jagged, and still threatened with collapse, but he refused to stop. The Queen shifted slightly, allowing him to move through the cavern unharmed. Ahead, the cavern widened into a massive chamber, bathed in a soft, pulsing light. Crystal formations stretched from floor to ceiling, shimmering like a living forest. Kellen's jaw dropped. He had never seen anything like it, a place that felt alive, ancient, and almost sacred. The predators from before had scattered, seemingly intimidated by the Queen's presence. Even the massive creature that had been pursuing them earlier now lingered near the entrance, restrained by the Queen's silent command. Kellen exhaled, allowing himself a brief moment of relief. He carefully set the hatchling on a flat crystal outcrop, cradling it in his hands as it blinked up at him, weak but alive. Its glow pulsed rhythmically, almost as if it were breathing in sync with him. A tear slipped down Kellen's cheek, not from fear but from awe and relief. He had done it. Against impossible odds he had protected something precious. The Queen descended closer, wings brushing the cavern floor. Kellen could feel the hum of her presence vibrating through the stones beneath him. The hatchling's wings flapped instinctively, responding to her aura. Kellen watched, wide-eyed, as the Queen slowly lowered her massive head, nostrils flaring, then exhaled a soft, warm breath over the hatchling. The tiny creature's glow intensified and it chirped weakly. Kellen realized the Queen wasn't just observing, she was communicating. Not with words but with intent, energy, and recognition. She understood him. She saw the courage, the intelligence, and the compassion he had shown. A warmth spread through Kellen's chest. Humanity's smallness didn't matter here. What mattered was heart, will, and determination. He knelt beside the hatchling, stroking its fragile head. "You're going to be okay now," he whispered. "You're safe, I promise." The Queen's gaze softened slightly, golden eyes locking with his. There was no need for words, the bond was clear. He had earned her trust. Then the cavern trembled again, but this time it was different. The low, vibrating hum that had echoed through the walls now intensified, resonating in harmony with the hatchling's glow. Kellen's eyes widened. He glanced at the queen, whose massive wings twitched, and he understood that something extraordinary was happening. The energy in the cavern was alive, responding to the hatchling, responding to him, and responding to the queen. A faint, iridescent mist rose from the crystals, swirling around them like living light. The hatchling's glow flared, brighter than it ever had, and Kellen realized the truth. This place was a sanctuary, a hidden power center of the dragons. And somehow he had been allowed to enter it, to survive, to protect one of their own. The predators that had haunted him earlier whimpered and scattered, intimidated by the queen's presence and the cavern's energy. Kellen felt a surge of triumph, not arrogance but pure human determination shining through. He had faced creatures far stronger, smarter, and larger than himself, yet he had survived because he had acted with courage, intelligence, and empathy. The queen lowered her head to the hatchling once more, and it chirped, flapping its wings weakly. Kellen smiled through his exhaustion. He had saved a life, and in doing so he had proven that even humans, small and fragile in a world of giants, could make a difference. But as he allowed himself this moment of calm, a new movement caught his eye. At the far edge of the chamber, massive shadows began to shift. Kellen's chest tightened. The sanctuary wasn't just a haven, it was part of a larger world, filled with mysteries he could barely comprehend. The queen stiffened, wings spreading slightly as though sensing what was coming. Kellen pressed the hatchling close, heart pounding, but he didn't falter. He understood now that survival was only part of the story. Humanity's true strength was courage, empathy, and cleverness in the face of the impossible. He had shown that today, and the queen had acknowledged it. The hatchling chirped again, glowing faintly in his arms, and Kellen smiled, determination lighting his eyes. Whatever was coming next, he would face it, as a human, as a protector, and as someone who refused to give up. From the shadows at the edge of the cavern, something stirred, enormous, alive, and unknown. The queen's eyes flicked toward it, and Kellen felt the unmistakable pull of destiny. He had survived the storm, the predators, and the impossible odds, but the adventure was far from over. He took a deep breath, tightened his grip on the hatchling, and stepped forward, ready for whatever lay ahead. And in the farthest corner of the cavern, hidden beyond the shimmering crystals, a faint glow pulsed, larger than the hatchlings, older and far more powerful. The hum of energy grew louder, vibrating in time with Kellen's heartbeat. A new mystery awaited, a new challenge that would test everything he had learned. Kellen looked up at the queen, then at the hatchling, and whispered, "We're ready. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The cavern fell into a tense silence, broken only by the pulsing glow of life, the faint hum of ancient energy, and the quiet certainty that this was only the beginning.